Welcome to our module on measuring resistance using a multimeter. In this session, we're going to unlock the mysteries behind resistance measurements and their crucial role in diagnosing electrical components. Our assistant for today's lesson is this square D magnetic motor starter. Let's dive in. Before we begin, it's essential to set up our multimeter correctly. Please turn the dial to the resistance or ohms setting. Next, connect the black test lead to the COM jack and the red test lead to the jack with the omega symbol. Let's start our investigation with the motor starter. Please connect the multimeter probes to the L1 and T1 terminals. Observe the reading. Notice the display shows OL. This indicates an open circuit, where resistance is so high, it's out of the multimeter's range. But why is that? Let's take a closer look. Focus on the motor starter. As we remove the front plate of the motor starter, observe the contacts inside. They're currently separated, creating a gap that prevents current flow, hence the OL reading on our multimeter. This gap is what defines an open circuit. Now, let's assemble our motor starter and manually engage the contacts by pressing the button on the motor starter's panel. Use the screwdriver to manually depress the push button on the front panel. Watch as the multimeter reading changes to about 0.2 ohms. This indicates the contacts are now closed, creating a continuous path for current flow, a closed circuit. Next, we'll measure the resistance of the motor starter's coil. Please move the test probes to the coil terminals. Let's delve deeper into how the multimeter measures resistance. When you connect the probes, the multimeter sends a small current through the circuit. It then measures the voltage drop across the cable. Using Ohm's law, it calculates the resistance. This is all happening internally, but let's visualize it. Let's also explore some advanced functions of the multimeter that would make your resistance measurements more accurate, especially for low resistances. You can use the relative mode. This mode subtracts the inherent resistance of the test leads, ensuring you get a precise reading of the cable's resistance. You can activate relative mode by pressing the corresponding secondary function button on the multimeter. Let's activate it now. Notice how the resistance value decreased? By using the relative function, we've effectively subtracted the resistance of the test leads. This ensures that the reading you see is a more accurate representation of just the cable reel's resistance, without any interference. Now let's get back to examining the coil. Observe the current reading from the display. A healthy coil should exhibit a resistance value specified by the manufacturer, in our case around 31.7 ohms. Measuring coil resistance is a straightforward method to assess its condition. However, coils can fail, impacting the motor starter's operation. Coil failures can manifest in two ways, as a short or an open circuit. Let's explore both. Here on the table, we have two damaged coils. Let's replace the good coil with one of these. Fast. Now let's check the reading. The resistance reading drastically dropped, approaching zero. If the resistance value is close to zero, what does this tell us about the state of the coil? Is it shorted or is it open? That's right, it is shorted. This near zero reading signals a short circuit within the coil, a serious fault that compromises the coil's functionality and potentially the entire circuit's safety. Now let's replace it with another faulty coil. Observe the reading. This time the multimeter displays an OL reading, similar to our initial observation with the unengaged motor starter contacts. This reading indicates an open coil condition. It means the coil circuit is interrupted, preventing current from flowing through it. An open coil is just as critical as a shorted one, demanding immediate attention. Throughout this module, you've learned how to use a multimeter to measure resistance, differentiate between open and closed circuits, and diagnose the health of a coil in a motor starter. Before we conclude, let's test your newfound knowledge with a short quiz. This will help reinforce what you've learned and ensure you're ready to apply these skills in the field. Best of luck! What does a multimeter display reading of OL indicate when measuring resistance? When measuring the coil resistance of a motor starter, a reading significantly lower than the manufacturer's specified resistance suggests what about the coil? After manually closing the contacts of a motor starter, the multimeter shows a reading of 0.2 ohms. What does this indicate about the state of the motor starter? Well done completing this resistance measurement module. Ready for more? Choose your next challenge and continue your learning journey.